afternoon. Thank you for the invitation in the first place. And I feel responsibility, competence, and we all feel that something is going on and we need to understand what's going on. A great farmer and forester are influencing the quality and the volume of water and the local climate. ENKI is a god of Mesopotamia, because we thought that if we go on like this, all water from our territory will disappear. So these are photographs from Mesopotamia, and this is what we see every day. This is Syria. They were a flourishing civilization 6,000 years ago. And I believe to farmers, and this is a diagnosis, and towns could be established only because there were at the same place melioration, and then only urban area was created. This is in Ethiopia 5 years ago. This was the Nile River. This is not a greenhouse effect. This is a former pasture. We cannot go back to the forest, because forest can make a living for 1 or 2 people for square kilometer, and we've felled forests so that we had arable land. We have changed the landscape. And again, I'm not attacking farmers. I'm stopping, but town of Benešov, and you measure the temperature of the field. There is 48 degrees centigrade. So we should say civilizations are trying out, and perhaps we are repeating their mistakes. 10 years ago, we used a thermovision. Up there, it's in Vis. You see, there was a forest. It's a landscape near the town of Třeboň, and down there are 28 degrees centigrade and 42 degrees centigrade. It depends on the type of the landscape. Then the surface temperature is accordingly high. If we offer to the sun just rooftops, the air is hot. If we offer to the sun the landscape with vegetation, the air is much cooler. Let me just repeat that we are measuring the sun energy in watts in square meter, and if there is a full daylight, we can measure more than 1,000 watts. So for 1 square kilometer, it's the output of the nuclear power plant. And to evaporate 1 liter of water, I need to have 1.7 kilowatt hour. So I have 1 liter, I add 1 kilowatt hour, and I have a water which evaporates, and this is a climate air condition, and this is the capacity of the car battery. So 12 volts of car battery with 50 ampere hours, and the result is 600 winter hours. If 1 liter of water evaporates, it's hidden energy the same as it is in a car battery.
Během jasného dne.
On a clear day, you can see time on the horizontal axis and irradiation intensity on the vertical coordinate. If it becomes cloudy, the intensity drops. this is just to illustrate how we arrived at our conclusions. If we build a parking lot from a meadow, the 500 watts per square meter that radiate on the area will heat the surface, and thus we increase the area of totally dry land. This is the Temelín nuclear power station. And the heat incident on several square kilometers is about the same amount of energy as that generated by the nuke. So we can measure solar energy, 877 watts per square meter, 57 degrees. Under a tree, it's just 26 or 27 degrees. And the tree has just evaporated 20 liters per hour. And if you take this amount as a unit, then the tree was cooling about as much as 5 air conditioning units, you know, from your hotels or from your flats. The heat is then contained in the vapor, and that will condensate where it's cooler. Now we are getting to the forest. Look at the maize. There are no weeds there, so the surface heat, the surface temperature is 50 degrees. In the forest, it's cool on the surface, and it's warmer up in the air. So the coolness stays there. It keeps there. So, going to the forest. This is from a study about 15 years ago. The question was, how does the water circulation look like in various parts of the world? The precipitation in Congo is about 3,200 millimeters per year, and that drops down to inland. You can look at Amazonia or at the Mackenzie River. Well, there's a lot of forest. Well, there's no forest. The precipitation goes down to zero. The forest evaporates water, but it does so very slowly. You remember the fogs over forests in the mountains. Then the temperature keeps dropping with height about 1 degree centigrade per 100 meters until the vapor cools down and drops in rain. You know that it usually rains in the afternoon in the mountains. This is what it looks like when the land surface is cool. if we deforest too much, then there's heating instead of cooling, and the air will take humidity out of the soil. This is known from summertime weather forecasts. When the forecast says that it should be raining in a few days' time, but the water evaporates and never falls down again. So there are acceptor areas where the ascending flow of humidity prevails, and then there are donating areas. Here are samples of the effect of deforestation, for example, on the Borneo island. So, time and precipitation on the two axes. And you can see the drop of precipitation, drop of rainfall after deforestation. So gradually the rainfall drops, and we do not need to explain that by carbon dioxide. It's purely attributable to what we've done to the land surface. Then, of course, the torrential rains will happen, and that is water that will never get as far as our country, because we have too few cool places in Europe. So the question is whether we should accept the idea that we change the climate by doing something with the soil coverage. It's quite a ridiculous idea if we decide that we should fell forests to not to burn coal. In order to avoid the burning of coal. That reminds me of Dr. Semmelweis in Budapest, where there were two hospitals.
Semmelweis si řekl, sakra, oni mi sem chodí z patologie a on jim nechal mít ruce.
There were two hospitals, one with good sanitary conditions, the other with less good sanitary conditions. They discovered that people should wash their hands, as Dr. Pasteur discovered a little later in France. So, farmers say that there's never rain on a dry field. That is easily explained by the ascending flow of evaporation. We admit that we are losing water by evapotranspiration, but then we say that it's attributable to CO2. Here is a dry field and here is a forest. The dry field looks innocent. There's hardly any moisture that can evaporate there, but it's an ascending flow. So it begins to dry the forest, and then comes the bark beetle. the brown soil here is dry land. Maybe the parking lot. Then the thermal flow goes up. It sucks air also from the sides. That's very attractive glider airmen for flyers. But then this moisture may flow to the sea. If we want to understand the climate, we have to be concerned with land cover, the distribution of solar energy, and water vapor. That's a way to understand the whole process. Bark beetle, that is a disaster. But we are still talking whether the drying of the forests matters or not. But the difference in temperature between dry forest and healthy forest is formidable. Something like 25 degrees. This shows the increase of temperatures during the day. In fact, we converted a cooler into a radiator. This is no good, and it shows some discrepancies in science. You can find on page 666 that it doesn't matter whether there's a lot of water vapor in the air or not, because the water, the air mass is changing, is circulating, so it should all be attributed to carbon dioxide. But I would rather stop here. We should stop desertification. We should return the natural function to the landscape. What Mr. Blahinka said sounded like an attractive vision. Because a smarter production of food could improve the retention of humidity in the landscape. So I will stop here. Thank you for your attention.